Welcome back to Behind the Play. My name is Alex Adams, and today I am joined by my friend and maybe the best Twitter follow out there for hockey, the one and only TOmar. Thanks so much for taking the time and doing this. Congratulations is in order because you're my first guest to ever come on 4 times. So
Oh
uh,
yeah. Oh,
I
has it been that many? I know it's been at least two.
I
But yeah, dude, it's been fun every time jumping on, and I think it's an interesting dynamic, Leafs fan and Sens fan. But it's always been great. So, I'm looking forward to this one for sure.
I've seen a lot of memes since my senators allowed you to have the grace of God to play the Boston Bruins. What was your first reaction when you saw that it's going to be the big bad Bruins in round one?
Yeah, it was funny to see like mid game because well, like as the Sens Bruins game was happening, the Leafs were having their own game. And I wasn't, to be honest, I wasn't really paying attention to the score until I saw people tweeting that the Sens were up 2-0. And I was like, huh. Okay, well, that's kind of funny. I mean, and all like people were saying like, oh, the Sens are mailing it in. I know the Bruins are mailing it in. They're just losing on purpose, so that they can face the Leafs. In my head, I'm like, oh, it's okay. The Leafs can control their own fate. It's fine if they win. If they beat Florida, they face Florida. If they lose to Boston, they face Boston. But you know what I mean? Like they can control their fate. That's cool. A lot of teams aren't in a position where they can control their fate. They have to kind of wait for things to happen. So at first I thought it was funny, and then I freaked out for a little bit, and then I was like, oh no, it's okay, it's fine. Like, the Leafs will do their thing. They had a great first period. They really were really competitive, and then they weren't, and they had probably one of the worst second periods of their season. They gave up like 30 shots, and they lose the game, and they end up facing Boston. So um. So it's just really funny because again, like the Leafs were in a position where they could kind of control who they wanted to play, and it's not like one series is going to be easier than the other. I know that some people have been trying to make the comparisons, but like I think regardless, both series would be difficult for its own reasons. But I guess it's just funny the way that it took place that the Sens beat Boston and then we lose to Florida, and then as fate would have it, another Leafs Bruins first round series.
The Sens gave you a nice little slap shot into an empty net.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. History repeats itself.
I guess with that, just I mean, the last time these two teams played each other, it feels like it was yesterday, but it really
Mhm,
was 5 years ago, when they played in 2018 and 2019 against the Bruins. How like these teams are in a lot of ways very different, other than
mhm.
Bergeron and I mean Marchand and Pasternak versus obviously the core four. Where do you think who do you have the edge in this series right now is before game one?
Oh man, it's so funny because the last 2 years, and especially this year, you look at Boston on paper, like you pull up their daily face-off, and it's just like, how are they so good? Like again, like all those players that like that we affiliate with or associate the Bruins with, that that had like that longevity of success. Like the only ones who are still there is like Marchand, maybe like Charlie McAvoy, and maybe you can like throw in like Lindholm in there. But like for the most part, a lot of their heavy hitters like aren't there anymore. You look at their center depth, and it's just like Pavel Zacha is their number one center. And again, like on paper, that looks odd and weird, but then when you watch them play, when you see how they're coached, I mean, they play the right way. They have great goaltending. Their defense can move the puck. Everyone is bought into the system. Everyone is bought in and how they play. They know how to turn it up. They know how to play. And I think with this team in particular, like they're still gonna have some sour grapes from last year because again, like they leafed last year. Like they were supposed to go all the way. Like they were that one of, if not the best regular seasons in NHL history. They were up 3-1, I think, against
Yep.
Florida, and then they blew the series lead and they lost and they lost the series. So they have a lot to prove, despite the fact that, again, the team on paper doesn't look so good. Now the Leafs on paper look better. Sure. On paper, And also on the ice, their depth has gotten a lot better, which has been fantastic. And I think the emergence of players like Bobby McMahon, Nick Robertson's playing more games. Pontus Holmberg, I think, is not being talked about enough as a player that has really, hit a new level this year. The defense is the defense. There's always issues there. But when it comes to the Leafs, their problem has always been their ability to score. Not the potential to score, the ability to score. And that's why those type of questions are always iffy with me. I don't necessarily know how to answer them because, on paper and based off of what we've seen, especially when the Leafs are at their best, I think you might be able to argue that they should have the edge over Boston. But Boston's done it. Boston has been there. They have players that even when they're down, they know how to get back up. Again, last year was a different story. So it's really tough. And again, I'll call a spade a spade. The damn is Leafs fan in me doesn't want to get too high because again, we have been in situations where the Leafs have been the underdog against the Bruins, or the Leafs have been the favorite against the Bruins. And again, something takes place, something goes wrong. Maybe their goaltending doesn't work. Again, they can't buy a goal. So it's tough. It's tough to tell, but I think what I will say is that if the Leafs special teams can sort
Mhm.
themselves out and actually take advantage of their opportunities, then I think they have the edge. But if their power play and their penalty kill like performs the way it has been in this regular season, they're going to be in trouble for sure.
Do you think, like, I know you just mentioned the special teams, but how much of it is just as simple as if Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner, William Nylander finally show up at the same time in the playoffs, that this is a not an easy series for the Leafs, but that they should win comfortably. If they don't show up, then like I don't want to always boil it down to something so binary like that, but
Mm.
in a lot of ways it feels as though it's put up or shut up with this team, and they haven't really, even last year when they beat Tampa Bay, that was some pretty I don't know, some crazy wins in Tampa Bay with all those overtime wins where that I feel like if you had to do it all over again, it would never happen again. Like 1 in 1,000 or something like that, that those games come down to
Mhm.
crazy comebacks. So well, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's always been that way, and I think if you look at last year's series, they got goals from their best players when they needed them. And to your point, usually when the playoffs start, there's only been one player of the core that you can guarantee is going to show up, and that's been William Nylander every single time. Whereas sometimes it's Matthews, sometimes it's Marner, sometimes Tavares has a game, but besides that, they don't like nothing's there. Now, what makes me feel a little bit better about the team this year and how if there are instances where the big four aren't scoring the goals that might be better, is that Keith, I said the last month of the season, has done an interesting experiment where he's put Matthews, Nylander, and Marner on their own line.
Mhm.
And I thought that was fantastic because I think Matthews right now has a good synergy with Bertuzzi and Domi. I think Marner and Tavares have always worked. Putting Bobby McMahon, if he's healthy, on that line has always made sense to me because again, Tavares and McMahon are players that just go to the areas, they go in front of the net, and Marner can just make a play and find them, and it's good. And then the Nylander with Holmberg again, who I feel like has been fantastic. And I don't know, maybe it's Robertson or Nyes, whatever. But having each of them on their own line, I think it allows them to kind of spread out the danger a little bit. And again, they have a better supporting cast goal wise that can complement them in that regard. So I think there can be instances where even if it isn't a Matthews or a Marner or a Nylander scoring, I think right now Bertuzzi, Domi, McMahon, Holmberg and Robertson have shown enough where they can kind of provide that secondary scoring. Now, of course, again, like you're going to need your best players to be your best players. And we would look at the regular season totals for Matthews and Nylander, and Matthews has 69 goals, Nylander almost had 100 points. But like at the end of the day, if they don't show up in the playoffs, if they don't show up in the first round, then it's going to be really difficult and very easy for Boston to take advantage of any issues that may come up. And I guess my concern when it comes to Boston is that they can get the lead, they can score goals, and then they also have the ability to shut teams down. And I don't think you can bank on the fact that Linus Ullmark or Jeremy Swayman are going to be hurt again, or bank on the fact that even if Linus Ullmark is hurt, that the coaching staff will leave him in.
Yeah.
And again, that's I feel like that we haven't made enough of that decision from last year. So, and I know for a fact that the team has definitely learned from that. So you need to hit on your opportunities, and that's why that's why special teams are going to be my focus, because we all know what happens once the playoffs start, right? Like the NHL refs, they take the rule book and they throw it in the garbage, right? So because of that, because so many things are going to happen, like if you get an opportunity, you have to hit on it. And if Boston gets an opportunity, you have to stop them from doing that. And that's where my concern is, that I haven't seen that consistency in special teams as of late. At the beginning of the season, they were firing up, but now it's still a little wishy washy, and that's something they need to definitely fix up for sure.
This hasn't been one of the best Leafs regular seasons in a long time. It's one
Mhm.
of their lowest points in the Matthews Marner era. But it feels as though this year, with the way Brad Treliving, wanted a lot of snot, as they say, and you look at Bertuzzi, Domi, Edmondson, Labushkin, in a lot of ways, from an outsider, it looks like this team isn't as good for the regular season as they were maybe in the Kyle Dubas era, but they're much better prepared for playoff style hockey. Do you sense that, even though they still have a lot of warts and maybe their defensive end, their
Mhm.
decor is probably one of the worst they've had in the last couple of years, but they're mean and have a lot of snot and maybe a lot of truculence, as Brian Burke used to say.
Yeah, ironically, that whole journey of the Leafs becoming a tougher team to play against in that physical aspect actually starts with Boston, because Brad Marchand, he goes into the corner with Liljegren. Liljegren goes down, doesn't get back up, and he's out with injuries, and the team doesn't do a single thing. And again, the media talked about it. Brad Living went talked to the players about it. It was just a big conversation. But again, it was a conversation that, whether you're a Leafs fan or not, like Leafs fans, the team is soft. And if you tried to tell yourself otherwise, you're lying to yourself. And I think after that point, you started to see the team stand up for each other a lot more. Like whether regardless of the context of what's taking place, if one of their players gets grabbed, there's a scrum. And to your point, like you already mentioned names, but also like players like Simone Benoit,
Mhm.
Jake McCabe have been really great in that regard as well. And then again, not from the fact that like they're fighting all the time. Granted, they have fought more this season, but just the response, just like hey, you nudge the goalie. Okay, let's just like we're gonna form a crowd in a little bit. We're gonna have a conversation. Just that. And I want to say one of their last times they faced Boston, there was a lot of that where Boston tried to push and push back, and the Leafs not only answered that call but also made some pushes themselves. I mean, like yeah, I mean the clip is everywhere of like Marchand like losing himself after Jake McCabe like cross checks him in the neck, and he's going nuts. He's really angry. He's chirping at Marner and
Yeah.
stuff. But again, I think that's what this team has always lacked. I think back to last year against Florida, and they were just getting bullied and pushed and hit and thrown around, and no one did a single thing. Poor Matthew Nyes got rock bottomed by Sam Bennett, got taken out of the series, and nothing. And I think the one thing that's comforting is that, I think if any of that happens in game one, which you know, Boston tries to do. And as someone who has watched the Leafs face Boston in game one series for the last couple of years, I'm watching game one, I'm seeing people like throw hits, and I'm like, huh. And then the crowd gets into it, and I'm like, okay, no one gonna do anything. But I think now they have the players who can not only match it, but will also start it. And I think when it comes down to like the momentum shifts and the changes in games as far as energy, I think that will be huge for the team moving forward.
I just, my only worry, and I'm trying to, not scare you too much, Omar, because I know this is a trying time in your life in April when the Leafs are in the playoffs. But
Mhm.
when was the last time a team won the Stanley Cup when their best players had no snot, no pushback, and it was just their physicality came from their depth players? I'm just Throwing that out
It's
there.
true. Yeah, no, it's true. It's true. I mean, you think of like Nathan McKinnon is a highly skilled player, but Nathan McKinnon will also wreck your shit if you mess him up. Steven Stamkos will snap. Nikita Kucherov will snap. Marchand will snap. Like there are skilled players all up and down the league who,
Mhm.
when it's time for them to answer the bell, they will do it. And I think probably the only player that we've seen get like close to being angry to the point where they actually like are throwing hits, ironically, is William Nylander. And there were some games this season where he looked pissed. And I think there were games where he'd be playing with Bertuzzi and Domi, and he'd like be finishing his checks and like cross checking people. I'm like, William, what happened? And I think that extra push, that getting pissed off and competing, and I hope what the star players realize is that the team goes where they go. And if the rest of the team sees them engaging in that physicality, in that anger, and again, we've seen it more from Matthews as the years gone on. We haven't seen it as much from Marner. Tavares kind of like hit or miss in that regard. But like if we get like a full team buy-in when it comes to that, and it starts with the star players, then again that could be a significant game changer because you're absolutely right. Like at some point the stars got to do it. The stars got to be the ones who are taking the first step into the ring. Definitely.
What do you think of the idea about maybe the reason why the Leafs best players haven't scored in the playoffs is that the idea of room where they through their
Mm.
physicality, through their, snot, allow themselves to have that room on the ice where players don't want to just say, hey, I can push Mitch Marner around, I can push Austin Matthews around because I'm not going to get a cross check to the back or a spear or anything like that. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I think that's 100% accurate. And I mean, I think when it comes to I think there's a reason why when the playoffs start, it's the bottom six character gritty players that are scoring those clutch goals because they're going to those areas, they're going to those spots. And you're not going to have the time to circle the puck around the zone. You're not going to have the time to stick handle a little bit and then make a pass. You have to be very quick, and sometimes it's reactionary. And that right there, Alex, the point you mentioned is why I'm so worried for the power play because that's what they do. They wait and they cycle the puck and they cycle the puck and they wait for the perfect opportunity. They wait for the highlight real play. And sometimes you just have to freaking go old school and just throw the freaking thing on net. Sometimes you just have to go in front of the goalie and make their lives uncomfortable and just bat away at the thing until it goes in. And what I'm hoping is that with the number of new names on the team who do score that way, with Bertuzzi and McMahon and Holmberg, Connor Dewar has been great in that regard. David Camp has been great in that regard, and Matthews can do it on occasion. What I'm hoping is that they just do whatever it takes. Like skill, sure, but at the end of the day, we just need to freaking score a goal. And and those highlight real plays, they're just not going to be there. And if they are, it's because the other team you're facing has made a grand mistake. But I think the issue with the Leafs over the years is that they wait for the teams to make that mistake and then they don't. Or when they do, like you're scoring one goal to make it 4-1 instead of 4-0. And they can't wait for that I guess perfection in that regard. They need to score those goals that may look horrible, but they cross the goal line.
What do you think of maybe just you do have a player of Austin Matthews ilk who scored 69 goals that
Mhm.
maybe he can in many ways outscore their problems and maybe even if it's not in the dirty areas just because he's such a wonderful out of like worldly player, maybe the best goal scorer of all time by the end of his career. Like what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think as a person who has watched many Leafs teams that try to outscore their problems, it does not work, and eventually it does catch up on you, and the Leafs have not had the goaltending to allow for that. we can't go Grant Fuhrer where we're trying to win games 6-5. And because a lot of the Leafs losses and granted in the regular season, but a lot of their losses this season have been because of goals that have been completely self-inflicted.
Mm.
Just poor decision making, lack of coverage, and just gifts, straight up gifts. Again, not to disrespect the people who do score on the Leafs because it does happen often, but a lot of those opportunities come from just things that shouldn't happen. A stretch pass when it wasn't needed, covering two players and leaving one person completely open, no net coverage at all. And I think if you continue to make mistakes like that, it's not going to matter how many goals you score if you're just going to keep on giving those same opportunities back. So yeah, they gotta do a lot. But I think the one thing that has been always been good about the Leafs is that they've genuinely been better defensively in the playoffs. Again, they just sit back and rely too much on those skill plays for goals instead of just trying to keep things simple.
How worried are you about the goaltending matchup in this series, just with two outstanding goalies and Samsonov, who's played well, but also was waived earlier this year at the same time?
Yeah, I'm a little concerned. I'm not gonna lie. I think there was a time where it seemed like Samsonov was back and he kind of got his swagger back, and he seemed like like, comfortable and calm, in the net. But again, there's a stretch where we started to see a little bit of the old Samsonov. But okay, but people will say, well, it's okay. Well, at least have numbers now. Okay, well, Joseph Woll has not looked himself since coming back from injury, not whatsoever. He finds his groove a little bit as the game continues, but when he's making a lot of those clutch saves, he's already allowed four. There's a stretch of like 3 or 4 straight starts where no hyperbole, the first shot of the game was beating him. So I was like, okay, that's bad. Martin Jones, he's the third string goalie. Ideally, he is not playing. If he is playing, is that a problem? Yes, because the same thing. Martin Jones, I think, is a decent goaltender, right? He's a decent goaltender, and there were a lot of instances, especially when Samsonov was going through his struggles, where Jones kind of carried the net and took the net. Am I comfortable with him doing that in the playoffs? No. And then and then there's Matt Murray, which it's a possibility. I mean, he's coming off this conditioning stint. Now, I don't think he'll be a go-to, but I think if injuries take place, he can be a person to call for. But I
Yeah.
think if you're getting to Matt Murray, then something has gone completely wrong, especially considering that he hasn't played NHL games all year. So I think you bank on Samsonov and you hope that that same kind of calm confidence that he's built up in 2024 sticks, because he makes and can make a lot of those like game saving stops. And the Leafs in the past have had goalies that sometimes do that, but not all the time. And it sucks now that, like, again, we're thinking of Boston here, is because I keep thinking of all those series where Frederick Anderson was our goalie and he'd be good, he'd be solid in the series, and then game 7 would happen, and then Anderson would say, you know what? I'm gonna have my summer now. Goal, goal, goal.
Yeah.
And again, considering who the Leafs are going to be facing on the other side of the ice, whether it is Omar or Swayman, they just can't afford to have that porous of goaltending. They can't. And yeah, I mean, maybe in the regular season they can go down 3-0 and try to come back in one period, but once the playoff starts, it's gonna be a completely different animal. So they need to ensure that the person that they trust with the net has the confidence and has the team's confidence that he can give them an opportunity to win. I think that's all you need. You just need an opportunity for them to win and stay in the game.
I just keep thinking about in the playoffs where they've blown all these leads and you just can't get away with that against good stingy teams. And
Mm-hmm.
I worry about that. And I also the Sens fan in me smiles thinking about Matt Murray playing in a playoff game this year for the Leafs. That would be probably a game 4 down 3-0.
I would laugh. I would laugh like maniacally if Matt Murray was playing playoff games. I'm like, what? Where did we go wrong? What happened? Now there's the evil little part of me that is filled with Disney Channel magic that says, hey, you know what? Well, the last time he made a debut in the playoffs with Pittsburgh, he won the cup. Maybe
Hmm.
this could be the year. But again, I don't generally have that. That's a complete optimistic take on my end. So I think right now it's Samsonov's net, and it will be until it's not. But I think because of the number of players that you have, and again, Joseph Wall played playoff games last year, so there's that. So I think Keefe does have his options, but I think right now is Samsonov's net, and again, hopefully he just gives the team an opportunity to at least stay in the game for as long as possible.
When the aliens come, as Max Kellerman said, and the fate of the universe is on the line, I believe in Matt Murray. Just so you know, Omar.
If I will full on tweet you if whenever something's happening in the game and then like we see Matt Murray just like go on the ice, I'm just gonna tweet you and say
Fate.
LOL. It'll just be LOL. That's it. It'll like just like no emphasis at all.
I guess my question following that is, how deep do you think, well, actually, what's your prediction in the series? Is it Leafs? Is it Boston? How many games? What do you think happens and why?
I think it definitely goes the distance. I think it's definitely going seven for sure. Um, because it has to, narrative and everything.
Yeah.
Ah,
You think the Leafs win a game seven in Boston?
okay. So here's the thing, right? Um, remember when Washington finally won the cup?
Yep.
And for the longest time, Washington was always the team that couldn't get out of the second round. They always lost to either Pittsburgh or the Rangers. It was mostly Pittsburgh. And the year they won, they finally got past Pittsburgh. Now, I'm not saying the Leafs are going to win the cup this year, but what I am saying is that there has been a demon of Boston in Game Sevens in TD Garden, um, that I feel like they have to beat at some point. So I will say Leafs in seven. I'm not 100% confident in it, but there's just something about this that just feels off, but at the same time, if there was ever a year where they could actually do it, it would be this year. However, if they also lose, I will not be surprised. And that is the allure of being a Leafs fan.
I
So
can
I will
just
say Leafs in seven.
I can just hear the Bruins goal song ringing in.
Dude, it's so funny that goal song used to be the Leafs goal song because I can't once hearing the goal song and the freaking cheers and seeing the TD Garden logo, like it's so like I hate it. I hate it. Every time I hear it, it's just like it attacks my spinal cord. Like I can't stand it.
That's
Ah,
a send off to Jack Edwards in game seven.
oh gosh. Yeah. Oh, honestly, yeah. But again, just like I feel like it has to. It'd be so weird if a Leafs Bruins series like ended in like 6 games or like five. Hopefully not five. That would suck. So yeah, I feel like seven is right. And
So
you can embrace it as long as possible.
let's live in a world where the Leafs can win in a game seven in
Mhm.
Boston. So we'll play this hypothetical.
Cool.
How far do they go in your mind this playoff? If you had to, put a wager on it to, say first, second, third, Stanley
hmm
Cup Finals, God forbid, where do you think this team ends up? Can they
Uh,
are they a cup contender in your mind?
I don't think so. I don't think they're a cup contender because again, I don't think they have the goaltending for it. Um, and again, and also the special teams has just hasn't been there for me to definitively say that. But maybe at this point they turn it on. I think at the beginning to start the season, I thought that a conference final was possible. I definitely don't want to go back to a first round exit after finally experiencing the second round for like the first time in 19 years, even though it was only 5 games. So that would suck. But again, a lot of people have been talking about it, and even James Murdo on the Leafs report
Yeah.
had that podcast a couple weeks back saying that like a first round exit isn't gonna fly with Leafs ownership. So there is not only pressure on themselves, pressure from the fans, pressure from management, but there's also pressure from ownership that they want some success. And so I think as far as a prediction goes, I'll put them in. I will stick with my gut. I will put them in a conference final. I'll put them in the conference final. I don't think they're a cup contender, but I will put them in the conference final. Um,
What do you
it's because
think
I
of
think I think once you get over that hump, once you get past that first round, then I think at that point the world's kind of your oyster. And and I think I don't know what it is off the top of my head, but I think they might face, if the Leafs move on, I think they would face the winner of the Tampa Florida series, and
Fremont, Florida?
that's gonna be a bloodbath. Like whoever comes out of that series is gonna be like hurting. Not to say that this series against Boston is gonna be any easier, but those teams hate each other, and Florida's Florida. So if Tampa gets out of there, then cool, but they're definitely going to be hurting doing it. And if Florida gets out of there, good for them as well, but they definitely will be battling for it. So yeah, I think they can. I'm calling a conference final,
What
maybe.
what do you think about the logic when you bring that up to me? My first thought is just that if they make it to the conference finals, they probably make it to the finals because the gauntlet that they go through in the Atlantic Division is so much tougher
Hmm.
and much better teams than than the Metro that literally has two good teams and the rest suck, right? So
Yeah,
you think about
I guess my only worry for the Metro teams is that if the Rangers come out, then they have Shesterkin. Um, I
Shesterkin hasn't been
hate
that great this year.
No, but Shesterkin does this thing where like he picks a team and says, "You're not scoring on me," and unfortunately, that's been the least a lot. That's been the least a lot. So that would be that I think that's why I'm not too confident in the least beating that Metropolitan team if they get through. And again, to that point, I could see a lot of those Metropolitan Division playoff series ending a lot earlier. Whereas I think a lot of these Atlantic teams are going to be having like longer series, more hard fought series. Again, no disrespect to these Metro teams, but it is what it is. There's the Islanders, and there's Washington and the Rangers and Carolina, and
Yeah, it's
right?
not the
So
same.
so yeah, yeah, it's not the same. So but again, they do have goaltenders who can steal the series, and Shesterkin is definitely one of them.
I guess I it's my fiduciary responsibility to ask you what would you do when and if they lose in the first round, and what happens to this team if let's say they lose in seven. I'll be kind to you, in seven,
Yeah.
not 4, 5, or 6 to the Boston Bruins.
Yeah, I mean, if they lose, I mean, at this point, I don't even know. I think the last series I was like genuinely upset at was the Habs,
Yes.
because there was so much that could have been that was their easiest path to the Stanley Cup final. And I think that was the lowest I've ever gotten after a series, and I don't know if anything else can top that. The first Tampa Bay elimination was just like more frustrating, if anything,
Yeah.
and the Florida series was just disappointing. Now it's Boston, hits different, right? So that kind of sucks. And also, I also forgot that James Van Riemsdyk is on Boston. I keep forgetting that.
Yeah.
So that would suck. I can see him scoring a game winner. That'd be painful.
Do you think as a fan it changes for you when you talked about how they're probably not a cup contender compared to maybe in 2021
Hmm.
until 2023, where it felt as though they could, if everything went well, they actually could win the cup?
Yeah.
Does that
Um.
change how much heartbreak you suffer through?
Yeah, because it's the expectations. So again, like with Montreal, the expectations were so high, and I was like, oh, cool, sweet, okay. We're in the Stanley Cup final, or at the very least, we're in the conference final. That's cool. That's wicked awesome. I got karma because I laughed at Edmonton for getting swept. So so karma
I
happened
remember
there.
that.
But yeah, but there are the expectations definitely, and I think in like in the oh my gosh, well, my years. So 2 years ago when they faced Tampa Bay the first time,
Yeah.
I was happy with the team, but I wasn't like fully on board with the team. Last year, I was on board with the team, especially because like dude was cooked at the deadline, like Ryan O'Reilly, Noel Chari, getting Jake McCabe, like he went in. So I was like, okay. So my expectations were higher. This year, I think because of what I've seen in the regular season, my expectations are higher than
Mm,
maybe not higher than last year, but higher than 2022, but still not as high because of what I've seen in the regular season. And the Leafs haven't been a team that is able to turn things on and turn things off. There are some teams that have like a lackadaisical regular season, but it's like it doesn't matter. Like when Tampa was winning cups back and forth, if they had a bad stretch, it's like okay, yeah, whatever. But like they don't care. It's a regular season. Like we know once the playoff starts, they're gonna show up. When Boston was like having deep runs, like we knew they once the playoffs started, they were gonna show up. Florida last year, like yeah, we didn't even expect them to make the playoffs, but once that playoff started, like they showed up. And for the Leafs, we never gotten that assurance that when the playoff starts, they will show up. So even though I am more confident in the pushback and the fight and the battle from this team, and I'm more confident in the depth, and I'm more confident in the strategy of splitting up the core four and spreading out your offense, I'm more confident in the aspects of the defense. I'm not as confident as I was last year.
yeah.
So I think because of that, if they do get eliminated in the first round, it would suck. But I know for a fact there'd be a part of me that would say, well, you know what? I'm kind of not surprised. Now, as far as what happens afterwards, again, like if James Myrtle and what he said in the Leafs report comes to fruition and there are changes, okay, then there are two people that are probably at the center of that of those change. Sheldon Keefe and probably Brendan Shanahan. Shanahan has been here for a long time, man. Like I remember the Red Sunday where the season ended and everybody got fired. Like I remember that day like definitively, and I remember his press conference talking about how they want to build a contender, they want to build a team that can make the playoffs every year. They want to get players who want to be here, who want to play here. And say, okay, cool. That was 10 years ago. And the highest we've gotten will be the second round. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Like we need some type of change. I'm looking at players like I'd be looking at players like Mitch Marner who needs an extension. Yeah, has a no move, but like a no move doesn't mean you can't be traded. A no move just means you decide where you get traded to. So, does it make sense to extend him, especially when you've seen what other players around Austin Matthews can do? And I think that idea of like, oh, well, Matthews is only good because of Marner. I think again, every year there are some instances or a lot of instances where Matthews just proves like no, that's not the case, and it doesn't matter who he's playing with. He developed amazing and very rapid chemistry with Max Domi, and as far as other forwards coming up in the system, Fraser Minton might be a player who plays games next year. Easton Cowan I think makes the team out of camp,
Wow.
right? So
He's been awesome.
right? So I think there could be a lot of significant change if they don't make it because at some point they have to realize that tying your cap into four people does not work. And if they don't make it again this year, it'll just be further confirmation that it does not work. So I don't foresee a future where the Leafs are eliminated in the first round and we don't see significant change of some sort.
I feel as a Jets fan too, like last year watching how they lost, everyone wanted to blow it up and they made the right decision not to. I give Kevin Shovel day off a lot of credit and that Dubois trade really
Oh, oh,
a home run.
oh,
But
oh, oh, yeah.
I'm not trying to make it about my Jets, but more what I'm trying to say is that for me, it's almost as much about how you lose in the playoffs or how it ends, right?
Mhm,
Let's say if the Leafs make the second round, they go to game 7, lose a 2-1 game against Florida. You're like, we're right there. Mitch Marner has 15 points.
mhm.
They lose in 6 games, and Marner and Matthews combined for 10 points in those 6 games. Then you're like, dude, what is wrong here, right? So
Yeah.
when just listening to what you said, my only inclination is just to think about how it goes, and then that indicates, well, does Sheldon Keefe have a future,
Mhm.
right? If the
Yeah, because like
goaltending's
there are
terrible,
names out there, right? Like I keep seeing. I think listened to a podcast like in like January of like Craig Berube saying like, oh yeah, I'd be an honor to coach the Leafs, and it's like so like there are this it sucks like last year when people were saying, oh
Quenneville,
fire Keefe, well people it's like, oh fire Keefe. I'm like, okay, yeah, but like who's out there? But now you have names that are out there, uh so yeah, I think a lot of people will benefit from the success of the Leafs. But some people, depending on how they lose, might pay for it. Definitely.
no, I was kidding about Joel Quenneville. I just thought that would
Oh,
be
oh, I didn't even hear that.
I like imagine him going to the Leafs. Woo,
Ah, that'd be bad.
that'd be bad.
Oh.
I get, but before I let you go, I just want to ask you a little bit about like the rest of the playoffs
Mhm.
and maybe the Canadian team specifically. Which Canadian team do you think goes the furthest? As we're recording, we don't know who Edmonton plays, but we know the Canucks play Nashville and the Jets play Colorado. Do you think the Cup's coming home, as they say, this year?
Uh I have always thought for the longest time that Edmonton just needs an opportunity to just fly. But again, it's going to be difficult. Again, I've been very impressed with the Jets. Again, I was a person when they extended Hellebuck and Shifley, I was shocked. I thought they were done. I thought they were gonna tank, fall, get Celebrini. Like I thought they go through like another like 4 or 5 year retool or something. But they really picked up. It just sucks that they have to face Colorado. When I saw that matchup, I was like, that sucks and it sucks in that regard. But like Edmonton, they came into this season like wanting to win the cup. Like they're competing for the cup, and I feel like especially after starting the way that they did, where they're like a bottom five team, and then they fought back and ended up getting there. I think when it comes to who has the closest chance right now, I would say them. Um, but if Edmonton wins the cup before us, I'll never hear the end of it. So
How much fun will it be to watch potentially the Oilers play the Golden Knights in the first round, and Mark Stone comes off LTIR. Uh,
it's such a waste. I feel like doesn't something like that scream like second round or like
yeah,
conference final? Like it sucks that it's happening that early, but hell, that's gonna be a fun series, man. That's gonna be a fun series. The Colorado series is gonna be fun. Like I'm actually, to be honest, like usually I try to catch like at least one Western Conference series, but like to be honest, I think I might try to watch as many as I can because there are a lot of like really cool matchups. I think a lot of them that can go the distance, just be based off of how the two teams kind of go against each other. So it's gonna be great to see.
do you think this might be one of the most open fields for the Stanley Cup? It feels as though maybe outside of the Capitals and the Islanders, maybe Nashville even, but they've been so hot. Like almost every team has a viable opportunity to truly win the cup. Like you wouldn't be, oh my God, if the Canucks won, you'd be like, oh, that's good for Sam. But
Dude, if the Canucks won the cup, I would send Sam the biggest celebratory basket.
yeah,
Like again, that'd be so sick for Canucks fans. Like
it
good on them. They
deserved
finally their team was good and then they won the cup. But yeah, you're absolutely right. It does seem very open, and I feel like there isn't like a clear cut like this is the team to beat. Even us having the conversation of me thinking that Edmonton has a chance to go the farthest. Like again, like I think if any of the teams that made it won the cup, aside from like the Capitals, and the Islanders. Sorry, Patrick Waugh. Besides, I think any team aside from those two, I would not be surprised if they won the cup. And I guess if you're looking at NHL ownership and like the league officials, like they're this is what they want. Oh, parity, yay.
Yeah.
But again, I think it just speaks to just the product of hockey that we've had this season with like the offensive productions and like the star players and the elite talent, doing what they've been doing. So I think it's a completely open, and I don't know. I think it won't be like last year where like Florida made the team made the cup final. We're like, how? Like
Yeah.
where did that come from? I think every team has an opportunity to go far this year.
You don't think Washington will win the cup after getting an empty net goal to get them in? You don't think that's going to happen, Omar?
Man, someone needs to write a book about that. Like that was some of the craziest like sequences I have ever seen. Like across multiple games. I have poor man, no one can give Tortorella a quick phone call and say, "Hey,
I
you're
don't
out."
get that. I don't get that.
I don't understand. I don't get it. Like even put it on the jumbotron for Christ's sake or something. I don't know, man. But like just this all of that, like it's just so odd. And again, just seeing Washington have like I think of all the playoff teams, they have like the worst goal differential.
Yep.
So like seeing
In a
them,
long time, and since
yeah,
like '82, that's the
yeah. So seeing them make it is hilarious. But hey, man, like Charlie Lindgren, he did something special with that team. And hey, we're gonna see Ovechkin in the playoffs, so that's pretty cool.
uh, just shout out to the NHL. That's why you go to 3-2-1 point system. Thank you for PWHL finally bringing it into our lives, obviously in the
Dude,
international event. But
bless
it's just
that league for genuinely trying to do things and seeing
watch
how
watch them just all of a sudden doing the gold plan, the playoff thing where you get to pick your opponent if you're the one seed. Watch the NHL
yeah.
just follow them.
Honest, dude, like of all the things, if all the things for the NHL to adopt from the PWHL, the 3-2-1 point system, absolutely, because it's so I think I saw a tweet the other day where someone like had the standings and showing like the regulation wins and the losses and the OT losses and showing like where Detroit is and like the Islanders have like 16 overtime losses. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Like it's insane. So yeah, the 3-2-1 point system and jailbreaks
I know.
they oh Joe, such a cool idea. I love Joe Breaks, man. This is such a cool idea. So like, if the league can bring those two over and definitely credit the PWHL for doing so, I think that would be fantastic. But they won't do it because they don't want to do anything fun or something that makes sense.
Yeah, well,
Um,
the owners just get to, Toronto doesn't need another team. Utah needs a team. Omar, we've been missing it. It's been right in front of us the whole time.
they're not
Utah.
even gonna have a name, which
There,
is wild to me. Like I feel like you guys can't just like put your heads together for like a month and come up with a name.
Utah Yeti.
I don't know. Yeah, something like that. I don't know. I don't
I
know. Yeah, just be creative. Like, oh my gosh, like give the team a name at least. I don't know.
I like Salt Lake more than Utah, but that's my own.
Yeah,
Salt Lake Stingers sounds good or something like that, where
yeah,
it
something like that. The Salt Lake
runs.
Stingrays. I don't know. Actually, I don't know. So I don't know. I kind of feel that kind of sounds like a high school team.
It
I don't
sounds
know.
like
Just something.
there you go. Yeah. Before I let you go, just what are you gonna do when the Leafs lose in the first round? I just want to know how I should try to help you out when you go wrong.
Why? I guess we'll. Well, I'll just go into. So it's funny. As soon as the Leafs get eliminated, I go into objective mode, where I'm just like, oh, okay, this team is doing well. Good for you. That team won. Excellent. And people will say, who do you want to win? And I say, I don't care. I genuinely I don't care. And at that point, like once the Leafs get eliminated, I cheer for players as opposed to teams. So I guess I'll kind of be looking for those stories there. So I'll be cheering for McDavid because again, I think it'll be a crime if McDavid finishes his career and doesn't win a cup. I'll be cheering. No, that's not true. There's one team that I feel that I do have some positive vibes towards, and that's Carolina. If the Leafs
Hmm.
don't do it, I hope Carolina at the very least makes the final because they've been too freaking good and too well coached to not have seen the Stanley Cup final. I thought they would make it last year. I was
They
so
should.
shocked. When
They
they
should.
got swept, I was so shocked. So if it's not the Leafs, I hope it's Carolina because again, like Rod Brindamore has done like so many things with that team, and again, I think they deserve to have an opportunity to at the very least play for the thing directly. So if the Leafs lose, I'll do what I always do. I'll take my 24 hours off of Twitter. I'll probably depending on how bad the loss is, maybe I might change my profile picture. It depends on how it goes. But then I'll just be watching along with everyone else.
You go from objective mode, which is before that is Matthew Nyes is a top three winger in the
Oh
NHL,
yes, extreme hyperbole.
to something else. So,
Yeah, yeah,
anyways, okay, thanks so much, Omar. I appreciate it, and I'll see you on the other side.
yeah. Absolutely. Thanks for having me on, man.